So welcome to another live stream brought to you, or News for You live stream brought to you by Freedom Media WA. About an hour ago, the Minister for Finance, Senator Katie Gallagher, moved a motion to introduce two bills, the introduction of the Digital ID Bill 2023 and the Digital ID Transitional and Consequential Provisions Bill 2023. So let's just have a look at those.
Senator Gallagher.
Thank you. I ask that Government Business Notice of Motion number 2 and 3 be taken together as formal.
Is there any objection to those being taken as formal? There being none, I call the Minister.
Thank you. I move that the following bills be introduced. A bill for an act to provide for an accreditation of entities in relation to digital ID and to establish the Australian Government Digital ID system and for related purposes, and a bill for an act to deal with consequential and transitional matters arising from the enactment of a Digital ID Act 2023 and for related purposes.
So the question is, the motion as moved by the Minister be agreed to. Those of that opinion say aye. Against? I believe the ayes have it. Minister.
Thank you. I present the bills and move that these bills may proceed without formalities, may be taken together and be now read a first time.
So the question is that the motion as moved by the Minister be agreed to. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Against? I believe the ayes have it. I call the Clerk.
Digital ID Bill 2023 and Digital ID Transitional and Consequential Provisions Bill 2023.
Minister.
Thank you. I table the explanatory memoranda relating to the bills and move that these bills be now read a second time, and I seek leave to have the second reading speeches incorporated in Hansard.
Is leave granted? Leave is granted, Minister. In accordance with Standing Order 115(3), further consideration of these bills is now adjourned to the 28th of February 2024.
So having just seen that, are you really surprised just how quick the government is to ram these bills through? Two bills that will have a far-reaching implication to all Australians, all to combat what the Albanese Labor government say, and to quote Senator Gallagher, will ensure measures are put in a place to ensure safe and trusted digital identity ecosystem across the country. Now look, I've covered this on previous streams where I spoke about the backlash when the Hawke Labor government attempted to introduce the Australia card. Some of you may be old enough to remember that. It copped a severe public backlash and saw huge numbers of people taking to the streets in protest. But since then, we've witnessed the continuing development of the national biometric identification mechanisms, such as increased smart city technologies, including facial recognition cameras and vehicle number plate cameras as well. Now, these two bills will seek to establish a set of rules that will dictate life in the new normal. A national identity database with the identification of Australians to be obtained via mass facial and biometric recognition systems through the MyGov logins, as well as the state-shared driver's licences and passports. MyGov is already a place where most services have been consolidated. That's the ATO, Centrelink welfare, Medicare, child support, those type of things. So if you're asking why this bill didn't have debate in opposition, well, it's normal for bills to be tabled in this manner, and time will come for that debate. But having just watched federal parliament proceedings this morning, I can tell you, before Senator Gallagher tabled these two bills, Senator Malcolm Roberts from Pauline Hanson One Nation got the call and tabled an amendment. Let's have a look at that.
And I believe I'm calling you, Senator Roberts. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, President. I move an amendment to the motion that the Selection of Bills Committee report be adopted. At the end of the motion, add the words, the amendment has been circulated in the chamber. At the end of the motion, add, but in respect of the Digital Identity Bill 2023 and the Digital ID Transitional and Consequential Provisions Bill 2023, the Economics Legislation Committee report by 14th of May 2024.
Now, what Senator Malcolm Roberts' bill essentially means is that he is or was seeking to delay the bill's introduction until May next year, so the proposed government detail in the bill can be better understood. In tabling his amendment, Senator Malcolm Roberts did get the opportunity to speak to his amendment with a response by the government representative, Katie Gallagher, and with some heated exchanges that resulted in Senator Matt Canavan having to add to the debate to highlight the hypocrisy and the deception of the government with this bill. Let's have a look.
Thank you. Are you going to speak to it?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
President, the Digital Identity Bill may be the most significant piece of legislation this 47th Parliament will introduce. President, the Digital Identity Bill may be the most significant piece of legislation this 47th Parliament will introduce. The effect of this bill is to tie every Australian to a digital identity that unlocks services necessary for life. This bill does not make identifying oneself online easier. It will facilitate making a digital identity check mandatory. That onerous measure comes at the price of putting identifying information for every Australian in the one spot and erects a giant flashing neon sign above everyone saying, "Hack me." The ALP, Greens and the Crossbench have rightly condemned the Robodebt tragedy, yet the program was based on the same hubris and arrogance that informs this legislation. Time will be needed to review 4 key areas: the technical feasibility of a digital identity in light of previous data matching failures, security over the data, the outcomes from identical legislation in other jurisdictions, and implications for misuse of digital identity. If those in this chamber are unaware of the significance of this legislation, then you are proving the need to extend the inquiry period.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, everything that Senator Roberts just said is incorrect and is not part of the bill. It is not mandatory. It is not mandatory. It is actually putting in place legislation that regulates the existing system. 10.5 million Australians have a MyGov ID. The system is working under the TDIF framework that the opposition put in place. This reform started in 2014 when it was recommended. There has been 9 years of work. I am getting representations from the opposition, from the Shadow Minister, to say that we are being too slow in putting this in place, and now the opposition are going to vote to delay it. This is the single biggest. When you meet with business, when you meet with small business, this is the thing that they want in place. They want a regulator in place. They want legislation around it. It is not about giving anybody a digital identity. It is about people being
Minister,
able—
I'm sorry, please resume your seat. Senator Roberts has just moved his amendment, Senator Canavan, and he was heard in silence. I remind senators who are being disorderly, one, you are not in your seats, so you are even being more disorderly. The minister has the right to be heard in silence. Minister.
This bill is about reducing the amount of information that is being held to verify your ID, that is currently being held in a number of places. Every time you have to prove your ID, where you provide information to different organisations, this is about reducing that. This is in response to Optus. It's in response to Medibank. The private sector want it in place. They want it regulated. We have the system in place now. We have private sector ID providers that are unregulated. There's no regulator. The ACCC is going to be put in place. This is a system that's operating now. And if people choose to get a digital identity, whether it be a public identity through MyGov ID or through one of the private sector ones, they are operating now. This is about enshrining it in legislation and making sure we've got an accreditation system in place. And I can see all of those up there laughing. I can see what's going to happen. We know what's going to happen. You're going to misrepresent this bill like Senator Roberts just did then. It is not mandatory. It's voluntary. It's secure. It's safe. People get to control the information that they provide to verify their identity. It's about personal control. And the hypocrites on this side who are sitting here, the opposition, that are going to vote against it, No, you lot, all sitting here. You sitting here. The opposition that are arguing to get it in. No, I'm not, Senator McDonald. No, I'm not,
Minister
Senator
Gallagher,
Henderson.
I will ask you to
I'm
withdraw. I will ask you to withdraw your comments.
I withdraw.
Thank you.
But the opposition, who are in the one breath arguing for it to be put in place faster, are now arguing for delay. You're making people less safe. You're making their identity documents less safe. That is what you are doing by supporting this referral until the 14th of May. It means that we will not have this system in place by July 2024, which is what has been sought and what has been consulted on for 9 years. I inherited this from the opposition, who had failed to get it to legislation stage after 8 years of working on it. This has not come out of the blue. This does not require a long committee process. There has been exposure drafts. There have been consultation processes. This is about making sure that people's information and the amount of information they have to share is reduced. It's about making sure there's a legislative framework. It's about making sure there's a regulator in place to ensure that the system works efficiently. And it is about protecting individuals' own information. And I cannot believe that those opposite are going to side with people who are going to pretend this bill is a whole range of things that it absolutely isn't. So when they say it's mandatory, it's not. When they say it's going to steal your identity or it's a big government conspiracy, it is not. This is about personal control of your own information. It is completely voluntary. It's an important economic reform that needs to happen, and it needs to be done quickly so that we can respond to Optus and Medibank, where people's documents have been taken and have been misused, and their privacy and their control over those documents has been abused. Please support the government's position, which is for a committee inquiry to report by the end of February.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Canavan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy President. Well, I just think I wasn't going to contribute, but I think it's very,
Canavan, I am not acting Deputy President.
Sorry, Madam President. I wasn't going to contribute, but I just heard the minister in her contribution say that this bill is not about a digital identity. The bill is called the Digital ID Bill 2023. I mean, if they talk about misinformation here, why is your bill called the Digital ID Bill 2023 if it's not about providing a digital ID? What is going on here? Now, all we're asking to do here, all Senator Roberts is asking to do, is to extend the inquiry into May next year. We're not really going to get going again until February, after the Christmas break. We're asking for February, March and April, 3 months, to have an inquiry into a massively significant piece of legislation.
Once again, senators on my right are being incredibly disorderly. You're not even in your seats. Their interjections are disorderly. Senator Canavan has the right to be heard in silence, and that is what I am requesting. Senator Canavan.
The minister here is saying somehow it will be unsafe if we wait another few months while we have an inquiry into a significant piece of legislation. This government's been in power for 18 months. If this was so important, why has it taken them 18 months to bring this legislation forward? And if it's so important, why is all our data already contained and safe, apparently, and no problems? We know there are already issues with the security of people's data. We know from the Medibank fiasco that occurred just recently that people can't always trust governments to keep their data safe, and that's why there should be a significant and comprehensive inquiry here that gives all Australians the opportunity to have their say. What the government is trying to do here is to rush this through without proper scrutiny, without Australians being able to understand what the government is actually doing with their data, with their security, with their privacy. This should go through because it is our job to scrutinise legislation, and there is nothing lost by waiting a few more months to get this right.
Thank you, Senator Canavan. The time for debate on this amendment has expired. So the question is that the amendment as moved by Senator Roberts be agreed to. Those of that opinion say aye. Against? Believe the noes have it. Division required. Ring the bells for 4 minutes. Order. There being 28 ayes and 30 noes, the matter is resolved in the negative.
Just make sure the audio's on. There it is. So essentially what happened there with Senator Malcolm Roberts' amendment, it was voted down 28 to 30, which means the government is dead set intent to ram this legislation through as quickly as it can. Bearing in mind, as you've just heard Senator Matt Canavan point out, Parliament is about to break and won't actually be sitting until February next year. Now, I'm sure that you'd agree when it comes to legislation like this, a few more months to work through extremely controversial proposed legislation would only ensure that what comes out is good law and not bad law. So not that any of it, and I understand and appreciate that some people will see this from the get-go as very bad law. Now, if you found this stream of some value, before I end, I just want to bring you a short extract of a press conference yesterday by Federal MP Bill Shorten. Let's have a look.
We are taking live to Canberra now. We're listening here to the Government Services Minister Bill Shorten. He's encouraging the almost 1 million eligible Australians to access unclaimed Medicare benefits.
This is still good news for cost of living. I know it is the issue, isn't it? Any questions on this? Yes. This is money which is ticked off. If you have, if you just go to your app, we'll send out a message. You go to your app, it'll have a message, go to Medicare, and then it is a really simple couple of step process, 3 or 4 step process. 3 days later, on average, $240 back into your account. As we approach Christmas, nearly 1 million Australians, the money the government wants to pay you, we just need your correct bank account details. All Medicare benefits.
Now, call me a skeptic, but when I heard that press conference yesterday, it's hard not to see the push by Bill Shorten here to highlight people who are missing out on unpaid Medicare benefits. And all you need to do to get this extra relief, as he calls it, in time for Christmas, is to sign up and update your MyGov account, provide your current contact details and your current bank account details. Now, if you felt that you may be entitled to a Medicare rebate, then that surely would be something that you would address at the time when you were seeking or soon after you received whatever treatment it is that you were receiving at the time. This push by Bill Shorten yesterday in mainstream media, and they've certainly been pumping it all out and targeting the very young demographic, the 18 to 24-year-olds, by saying, hey, you might have about $245, which is about the average rebate that the government says is outstanding, that this push is stealth by design to get more people into the voluntary system, as you've just heard Katie Gallagher say. And many of you, I can see your comments talking about previous things that have happened in the last couple of years that were not spoken about as being mandatory, but we soon know what happened there. So ask yourself this: why is the government not able to correspond with you and highlight to you that you have an outstanding rebate due, as the only way that you can find out to opt in, as Bill Shorten said yesterday, is to update your bank account details, and then and only then will you know if you have an unclaimed benefit. Once you've opted in, how hard is it to opt out? So food for thought, in my view. As always, please like and share this stream so more people can get an understanding of what happened today in Federal Parliament about what is coming down the pipeline. The start of a social credit system where whenever you show your driver's license as a form of ID to the number of places that you do currently, the difference is under this bill, the government will soon know in real time exactly what you are doing. Thank you for commenting and watching, and enjoy the rest of your day wherever you may find yourself. Thank you.
Brought to you by Freedom Media WA, where journalism should never